Alrighty, everybody. We are here. It is the party line tonight. You have myself, Mr. Jow. I am here as your wonderful host, as always. We have Mr. Rainwater, the man who knows more about trailer parks and warlocks than anyone else on this podcast. We have the Joker to my Batman, and yet somehow he's like one of my best friends. Mr. Matt Walters is here. And coming to us all the way from Costa Rica, Mr. Diego.
What up? Diego, bitch!
Okay, before we even go into art or any kind of bullshit, we have to clarify. Diego is an enigma wrapped in a mystery and, like, coming through the Bermuda Triangle. No one knows what's going to happen. And one day, he walked into, it was, Joker, it was your dorm room with him, correct? And I think we were watching, like, Justice League, the cartoon, the Bruce Timm cartoon, and Diego was just setting up his voicemail. And he just shouted into his voicemail, Diego, bitch! All right. And it's like, there was a decay of energy as it went through. And me and you just started rolling from laughing because it was Diego in 3 words. And since then, we have not stopped quoting it anytime Diego comes up, which is quite often, Mr. Larragon. We talk about you a lot. We love you, buddy.
Yeah, man.
First off,
I love you all, guys.
Right off the bat, Diego is primarily illustration, correct? That was your main focus when we were at school. But you also dabbled in music. You were in a band called Barnum, correct?
Yeah. And when I was in SCAD, when I met all y'all, I was doing initially. I was trying to go for animation. Thank God I did not. Then I dabbled a little bit in sequential art, which I met some friends, including, Matt came in almost a year later after I came into SCAD as my roommate, which is why we're like this. And after that, just kind of went down to illustration, which I felt more comfortable, felt more natural for me. So yeah.
Now
and. The music thing happened. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
The music thing happened like somewhat mid SCAD. I started doing karaoke. And I got into it, and it was thanks to my other friend, Cassandra Bush.
Oh wow, I remember. Yeah.
She was like with me all the way in SCAD as well, and she got me into doing karaoke, and then I got the music bug in.
Can I ask what exactly what did you actually do in the band? You were singing?
Yeah, I was a vocalist. The Barnum actually happened when I came back to Costa Rica post SCAD. But yeah, I did some sound design actually in SCAD. That's for the main focus of trying to get music involved in that, so I can do like my own art, my own music, my own mixing and all that stuff. And yeah, it kind of worked out, learning all that stuff. I was like this close to finishing with sound design, but I just decided to just go on with illustration instead.
Sure.
But yeah.
Now
and I'll even say Diego. Before karaoke, it was MTV Music Generator. In our room.
Yeah.
On PS1, you used to make some bomb songs. Like it was like this trance, like kind of jungle kind of thing. Yeah, those were bomb, dude. Those were good.
I vaguely remember this because I would remember I had never, again, in my sheltered little Connecticut white boy life, I had never really heard trance music or anything of that sort. So, like, when you guys were like, Diego made this song on the PlayStation, you got to listen to it. I was like, oh, that's fucking awesome. And I would play it, and you guys were like, isn't that fucking cool? And I'm sitting there going, what kind of music is this? I don't know what's going on. Like, I was trying to be polite and not, like, raise any red flags about how sheltered my life was. But I do very distinctly remember you were like very musical and almost like a lot of the things you did. Even like we're going back to the voicemail we were talking about. There was a little bit of, there's a rhythm
musicality
almost
to it.
Yeah.
It's composition.
So was music always like a big influence on like your art or just your life in general, Diego?
Oh yeah. Like when I was in school, like again, music dinner was like a PlayStation 1 thing, man. After school, what I would do is just like I would make the music. I would like also like I would even hook up the PlayStation to my janky ass stereo, like hooking up the RCA's there and record on a freaking tape,
Nice.
And then it was like thanks to one of my uncles in here in Costa Rica that they actually have a recording studio. So what I would do is also like I would take my PlayStation, hook it up to their system, and then they told me to kind of do it a certain way. So what I did was just like just kind of ran with it, transferred the tape onto the CD and all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of was fascinated, with all sorts of music because like the main thing was that I just started listening to music thanks to a lot of my musical influence came to oddly from the Flintstones movie soundtrack.
Please tell me more.
Yeah,
yeah,
we need to hear about this.
Yeah, like my whole like shuffle in taste in music was mainly because all the music in the soundtrack was starting with Weird Al doing his Under the Bridge, Red Hot Chili Peppers covers.
Right.
I was like, that is insane. And then like hearing like the B-52s called the BC-52s.
That's true. I remember that. Yeah.
The bedrock twist.
Exactly. Like all that stuff was like, I was like, that's so weird. And I like my first album I bought, and then just listening to all sorts of like music soundtracks, movie soundtracks. That is, I started listening to all sorts of things. So that's like what really got me into music. And then when I found out that you can make music with a PlayStation, like, oh my god, I gotta get my hands on that stuff. And yeah, that's when it went out. And then I just drawing came also naturally to me, mainly when I was a kid. Like one question one of my friends told me, what do you want to be when you want to grow up, And I was like, I want to be a drawer.
You're such a good drawer.
Well, that works out. Like, as I was talking about a little bit before we started recording, I realized today while we were doing this, I did not know the exact definition of what illustration meant. And according to the internets, illustration differs from drawing because drawing is apparently a more personal particular endeavor, whereas an illustration is more of a commercial venture. But then I was looking into what differs in illustration from graphic design and from painting, and like the line gets very blurry. It's like there's not exactly a very simple answer to it. But the one thing that I have kind of noticed that is a big separator from a lot of the other things is illustration, and correct me if I'm wrong, the three of you, because the three of you are more into this than I am, and I mean like talented. It's a lot more like pen and ink type stuff, correct? Is that a more am I on the right track?
Yeah, like illustration is actually it's a mixed media art. You can go from just using graphite pencils, you can use ink, watercolors, anything that can.
You can use human blood if you want.
That too. I mean, like even if you look at like music album covers, like Metallica's Reload, Load and Reload covers. If you probably noticed, it's all like liquid and stuff. Yeah. The way the media that was used in that was like jizz.
Is it really?
Other yeah.
Yeah.
The artist actually used jizz, kind of like play with the pun of the album title. So yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit. We've gone from the Flintstones soundtrack to jizz in the most record whiplash time.
Welcome to me and Diego's roommate in college.
Yeah, dude.
I think
No,
the listeners are getting a sample of what it was like to hang out with you guys.
I wanted to comment further on what Diego was talking about too, because I think that does really set up the distinction, not only between the distinction mainly, I guess from my perspective, from illustration and then like being in sequential art. And in sequential art, it was like you're gonna learn to draw, you're gonna learn to color, and you're gonna learn the letter, you're gonna learn the factory method of doing this. And there wasn't a lot of room to go out to explore so much. You could. It was welcome, it was invited, but it was also like, well, you know, when you have a working job, when you have a paying job, you're probably going to use Adobe Photoshop. You're probably going to be inking and drawing in these ways. And so Diego and a couple of other people I've seen who were in the illustration route, that was definitely like the thing was like, oh, well, we're experimenting or we're working with watercolor, we're working with all these other mediums. And as I've gotten older, like I kind of regret not having taken a couple of illustration courses because there is so much texture and atmosphere that gets added when you get to, you know, play with other materials and other like substances or whatever, you know, because you can create a certain amount of organic quality to your illustrations that hard to do in Photoshop sometimes.
Yeah, like for example, like the thing that really got me into like when I started taking some sequential art courses, and you know Matt introduced me to a lot of artists as well. Like I started to notice like Alex Ross, for example. He's one of my favorite illustrators, and he does art only for, you know, comic book, anything DC, Marvel, and all that stuff. And the thing that I love about that guy is that he's the one who kind of brings like a sort of realism into the characters, into his art style. That's what I love. And then there's also the other side of the coin, which is like Dave McKean.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. As like he's very illustration oriented.
Yeah, that guy, he does mixed media type art. Like if you probably seen his art and don't recognize it, mainly in music. He did the CD cover for what was it? Was it Counting Crows? Yeah, I think it was for Counting Crows. The Fishbowl.
I swapped my whatever for two goldfish. The storybook.
Yeah, exactly. He did that. Dave McKean also did artwork for this band Fear Factory. He did a lot of art for that group, and
the movie Mirror Mask.
Exactly. Oh my God, Mirror Mask. That's a beauty.
I was looking them up right now because I was like, the cover to Ashes, I think it's Scary Monsters. Seems like it's Dave McKean, but I don't know if it actually is Dave McKean. The Bowie album.
Yeah.
I think he did that, actually.
You sure?
I'm not sure. But
it's one of those things where I'm like, it looks like him, but I don't know.
I don't know either.
It might be just somebody biting off his style, the way that movie posters just do Drew Struzan Mountain of Heads these days, and they basically copycatted this kind of structure that he designed, and now it's boring as fuck.
Scary Monsters, it'd be before Dave McKean. Is that right?
It would be
timeline-wise? Be before Dave McKean's heyday, because like Dave McKean really rose to prominence with like the Sandman covers.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any confirmation of it, so.
And also, he did the art for the famous Arkham Asylum comic.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So he's also.
See, that one I know, because it's a little bit more mainstream and it's Batman. So that's how I would know.
The other comic artist I would want to mention is Bill Sienkiewicz.
Bill Sienkiewicz, so amazing.
Yeah. He's definitely another one. Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Joe.
No, it's fine. Listen, I love when you guys talk about this because I have no idea about any of these people until you come to like their most well-known work of art, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I think I know that. Is Batman involved? Because if it is, then I probably do. But otherwise, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna get to Google that later. I'm curious to know from the three of you though, if you had like a because I mean you all have somewhat a little bit experience doing illustration, whether or not it's your primary thing. Do you guys like have a preference for any kind of the mediums that you would use in it, or like what's the most like out there thing that you've either come up with or used? Like obviously you referenced jizz. I'm pretty sure the three of you gentlemen have not utilized that in your work, but if you have, you feel free to mention it. I'm just curious to know, like what would be, or even if it's not something you've used, but like something that's maybe struck you as like really creative from like another artist that you've thought to yourself, I'm going to save that from my arsenal one day and use that. Is there any particular material that's kind of struck you?
Well, personally, mainly for functionality, or what's that word I'm looking for? Effectiveness. I've been going more digital in a way. Like mainly what I do is just like do a quick sketch on my sketchbook, pen, pencil, and ink, and then I just kind of scan the picture or take a picture of it and put it on my computer, vectorize it. That way, I'll just kind of like color in either using Photoshop or Illustrator, and then kind of go do whatever I want right there, But traditionally, if I had the option, I would go crazy with. Well, I usually would use watercolor or concentrated dyes, since it kind of I kind of like the whole idea how it kind of blends all together with tints and everything.
Yeah.
And then the other one, which is like a more dry and reusable medium, would be gouache, which I found out when I was in SCAD, which is like something totally new, and I can't really find it here in Costa Rica, and it's driving me freaking insane.
What the hell is gouache? I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, gouache. Yeah, gouache is kind of like if you grab acrylic paint and you just kind of you actually literally grab some water, put it on the paint, you mix it up, and then you kind of paint it over. And then the cool thing about it is that when it dries, you can still reuse it, just adding a little bit more water onto it. So what I would do with gouache is I would paint gouache, let it dry, then I grab some color pencils and paint, draw color on top of the gouache painted areas to kind of blend it and give some texture on the image. And ever since I don't have any access with that, I've been dying, man. But yeah.
I'll see if I can find you some, man. I'll put it in that box I still have to mail you.
Oh, and I also need to send you some stuff.
Oh, man. Yeah, like I ended up, there was this one technique I learned in drawing too, which was like one of those gen ed classes, but like some of those were actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys take any classes with, I'm about to name drop, Dick Bjornseth?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He was he was a really eccentric cat, man. Like he had like a van parked out in the lot. It said Area 51 on it. He used to try to always show you pictures of UFOs that he allegedly took, but I'm pretty sure he just kind of somehow photo manipulated and had it printed back out on photo paper. And then he was talking about like he'd melt Barbie parts to make a lamp.
Yeah, I remember that.
But the technique I learned from him, to get back to the point, is like he had us take bricks of charcoal and like shave them with a knife, like over the paper, like so it's just a bunch of dust, and then like get your hands wet and just like smear it and smudge it all around, and that's like the background to your drawing. And then you take like a Conte crayon or like some charcoal or like white charcoal even, and you can like knock back darkness and pull out like light and like render something on top of it so that it's on top of the background that's just all this chaos. Ooh, wow. And I think that's cool. I kind of would like to get back to that.
That's awesome. I don't have anything as interesting as either of those examples. My most out there thing was just a process and it wasn't materials. Like I drew digitally and then did the finish like analog. So like I basically would, because I was starting from a picture that I would overlay when I was doing the drawing. so that I could do it as accurately as possible. So partially tracing, but I had to make up a lot of stuff in the picture. And so I do the whole drawing like that in Clip Studio, exported it as a PDF and printed it, and then just got Copic markers and went at it in a really painterly manner. And it had the effect of looking exactly like I wanted it. Like, it was mission accomplished. But no, I can't say that I have any unusual materials that I've used, though.
I do have
get on that.
I do have a question, Mr. Rainwater. We're gonna break off of the illustration topic though, because you and Diego both mentioned digital quite a bit. And I don't know if Joker and Diego are as familiar about this as you, Mr. Rainwater. You were trying to explain it to me on Twitter the other day, but I don't think I get it. But I keep seeing this thing about NFTs. Nancy freaking Thomas, and I'm trying to understand what exactly this is. My understanding at the moment, and you're gonna have to correct me because I know I'm probably wrong.
Sure. I'm curious to hear
like
what you
a
have to say
digital copyright of like the original PSD or something that someone did, and it makes it more valuable than just if someone copy and pasted it from Google or something. It's like the source file for a digital art. Am I understanding that correctly?
It's actually pretty
Yeah,
accurate.
it's pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing is that, so the main appeal, quote unquote, whatever you want to call it with NFTs, is the idea that, so with crypto technology, blockchain, and all that stuff, you have this ability to do something where you can encrypt code, basically. I don't know what else to call it.
Sure.
But basically, this encryption acts as a form of scarcity for something. So, like you're saying, you can copyright a piece of work. So, like, you can basically put, I don't know. So, for example, because I've actually made a couple just for the hell of it. I've exported a couple, or I've minted a couple of NFTs that are just like pictures that I've made. Okay. And you basically upload them to the site and they encrypt it. They back it with this thing. It turns into a token. And the idea of it being a token is you can now exchange it between your wallet and somebody else's wallet on the decentralized blockchain. And that is, honestly, I'd say that's where the actual value of it comes in. If the blockchain did not exist, it would have zero value, in my opinion. But because it exists right now and because you can exchange it between people on that protocol, that's where it has value. And I think this is something that right now, my opinion, the amount of money that people are spending on most of these NFTs do not match the actual asset that's there.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's kind of this is an old art thing anyway. So let's be honest.
Yeah.
I think in the long term, as soon as people understand how to like use this with stuff like VR, it's going to have it's going to have a more intensive concept of value, because then like, let's say somebody does a 3-dimensional scan of Michelangelo's David. All right. NFT it. So there's like only like, I don't know, 3 or 4 in existence or whatever on the blockchain. And you can now transfer it between wallets so that somebody can go into their wallet and explore it from a 3-dimensional perspective, with their goggles on and whatever.
Yeah.
I can make an argument for that. I could see the idea, of like why it has value or why it can be treated as an asset. But right now it's all hype right now because it's just completely new and nobody knows what they're doing, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like the whole idea behind it, like that also caught my attention with NFT is that is pretty much it's bringing up an old concept and modernize it, because it's pretty much like having a virtual gallery that you can sell your items. So instead of having like a frame thing, you actually have a digital thing that you can own. So the blockchain is kind of like saying, hey, you have the right to own this, and it's still protected with copyright protected.
Right.
And yeah, like that's like the main thing that caught my attention, and part of the reason I kind of started going digital this year particularly. I already had some digital art before, but by digital, I mean I made art on a computer, you know. But it wasn't like it was until like this artist who made it really big recently. He goes under the name Beeple.
Yeah, I've heard about him.
Yeah, that guy. Oh my god! Like I started following him like last year because I was watching on YouTube this channel Corridor Crew.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys, they talk about visual effects and all that stuff, and they brought him up.
Channel.
Oh yeah, like they brought him up, and pretty much what he does is he does 3D illustrations. That's how I think I would call it that way. And he does weird, bizarro 3D illustrations every freaking day. So
I think I've seen this Instagram before. I don't remember that being the name, but it was like, was there like a giant like Hillary Clinton at one point that was like chomping things and like
yeah.
Okay, I have seen this. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. So yeah, pretty much he's like the poster boy for NFT crypto arts right now, because he's been like since he has like almost 13 years of daily arts accumulated, he already knows how to do his own stuff and be very successful with it.
That's awesome.
And that like that's something that finally is very important right now, especially now everyone's like staying at home because of the pandemic and everything. That helps a lot with the artists to make some sort of money that might be consistent. And as you mentioned, Rainwater, like there's a bunch of artists out there, and the value is not the same how much they're paying for, as you mentioned.
Right.
There's some really like janky ass stuff.
Right, but as soon as Banksy starts doing like a digital thing or whatever, his name brand is going to sell that. And it's just like, oh, I have an original Banksy file. And it's like that's the real thing. It's like people just trying to show off a collection or something like that. But if you ask me, and I'm going to let you weigh in, Joker, because I know you were just about to say something.
No,
I feel like this is a good thing for artists because it's not only... It's like it's as Rainwater has once coined the term, it's like going to bring back the opportunity for rock star artists where it's like this guy or this person made this art and now I have it. And like if I find a company that's using it and I have the NFT, do I have the copyright of it? Can I sue their ass? You know what I mean? Like it's a way for the actual, I don't want to say monetization, but the ownership of a created image is now coming back to like a finite cause. Whereas before it was just, if you can hit copy and paste or screenshot, it's yours. Like you don't need because watermarks only last so long until you get someone with a really good Photoshop skill who can remove that watermark. And then, you know what I mean? Then they can just rip you off and make an Etsy shop out of it, which whenever I see shit, I like, there's a bunch of artists that do like horror movie t-shirts, and people are constantly stealing their shit and putting it on like a fucking tumbler glass on Etsy and selling it and making their own money. And it's like, fuck you. Like you didn't do anything other than hit Control C, Control V. And now you're making money off of somebody's hours and hours, maybe even days or weeks worth of work. Like that's fucked up. So NFTs feel like, to me, like it's digital artists taking back ownership of their medium from the piracy of the internet.
Exactly.
Did you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
So I have a lot of thoughts on it, as you might predict.
Go for it.
Diego, I don't know if you've watched my other episodes, but I hold these guys prisoner to my babbling quite a bit. So I'm going to try to rein it in. I have kind of equal amounts of positive and negative opinions about NFT.
Okay.
Which leaves me directly in the middle, like neutral at zero.
Can you hit me with the negatives of it? Because we've all kind of gushed. I feel like it's been a little towards some positives. So lead with the negatives and then come back with the positives at the end.
Yeah.
If you can. If
As
otherwise,
Diego knows, that's something I'm very good at. I'm good at leading with the negatives. I always think about those first. So it's not even necessarily a negative with an NFT, because to be real frank with you, I would have to learn more about it to come up with any hard opinions about negatives on it, because I haven't even made one yet. So I would be talking out of my ass to say anything bad about NFT in particular. But as I know it from history and art history and gallery history, the value of an art piece in any gallery, and presumably also a digital gallery, is not set by scarcity as much as one might think. Right. And it's not set by art style and who likes it more as much as some might think. It is set by a world economy of art. It is the same as like the stock market. And those who are incredibly, like the uber rich, we're talking about like Rothschilds, Waltons, you know, like the world over, those style of rich people, they just decide, along with subsidiaries in their like art brand, you know, departments or whatever, that, as you can tell, I know a lot about this because I'm using whatever in my argument. But you know who did a better job of it than I is, if you're familiar with the show Adam Ruins Everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
yeah.
He did a whole piece on this, and you can probably find it on YouTube. And I learned a lot about that, actually. So, I mean, the art is just a tool to spread money or to invest money by the uber rich. So, like, somebody at, like, my level, I could be the most popular internet artist with, like, all my friends and people who draw comics that I like. We could all be really popular together. That doesn't mean my art is worth that much as, like, one that sells for millions at a gallery. There's no monetization of like a meritocracy on effort. As much as you might think in an ideal world, we would like that to be true. It's not. And that's where you have, you know, like a Kandinsky or like you know, something like that people like to use as a hot button example. Huh?
A Pollock?
Yeah, a Pollock. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, Ed Harris was good in the movie, but like, you know,
I can go a lot deeper with you too on Pollock, because apparently there's a lot of CIA involvement with Pollock.
Yes. Yep. And like, that's what kind of pisses me off is like when I see something like this where it's like, you know, some Zuckerberg edgelord douchebag in a fucking fitted t-shirt is going to tell me like, oh, I came up with the solution for art. Really, asshole? Did you? Or are you just making Hillary Clinton and putting a Bitcoin on it because you know you have 13 years of it stored up? What, I'm supposed to like be like, one day I'll be like Beeple? Like, no, I fucking won't. Hell no. Nobody gives a shit about my art. And so, like,
in a way, you're basically saying it's a way for rich people to like pay each other off or like exchange money and dodge the IRS by like trading something that has like a mysterious floating value.
I think that it will become something like that until the bottom drops out and like, you know, Rainwater says, like the blockchain disappears. Oh, whoops. So I really don't think that those rich people are going to really invest that much in NFT because it's so like, it would be like saying, I'm going to invest a lot in a gallery of priceless artwork that's made of magnesium right next to a fireworks factory. It's not a smart investment. You know, and I mean, it's fun. I think it's a fun novelty for now. And here, so there were my negatives, right? You told me to leave the negatives.
Sure.
Here are my positives. I think, despite my rant that I just had, I think NFTs are a very novel approach to solving a problem that has needed solving for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to try to find solutions like this, even if they don't work, just for the virtue of finding a solution instead of just staring at a problem that will never end. So I do salute them for that. And I do, in my heart of hearts, hope that it works. But I am too cynical. And I know that the like Illuminati super rich people run the entire world. And it doesn't really matter what we do unless we were all to stand up together as one people, way outnumbering them, and like all just raise the middle finger and just start burning it down. Like that's the only thing that will affect any real change.
Yeah, pretty much NFT is a solution, but not the solution.
Yeah, I just also wanted to add at the end of that too, there's another aspect of it that really favors artists, which is that NFTs include things called smart contracts, which is basically a way of getting out the middleman. Basically, this is why people like cryptocurrency and like decentralized internet so much, is because they're trying to invent these ways of just fucking getting out the middleman and everything. And so basically the idea is when you put together an NFT, there is implemented with the code a way to track the sale of the NFT from person to person. And the artist can get kickback on the secondary market. So
that is phenomenal.
That's really cool, right? So
yeah.
like, let's say Zhao buys a drawing of Batman by me as an NFT, and sooner or later he just gets tired of it. It's like, well, I'm just, it's probably Rainwater's gotten so much, clout now. I'm going to make some money off of this, and so sells it to Diego, and it's the price of it's risen maybe 150%. Well, I get 15% of that.
Exactly.
There's nobody. I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to do any kind of legalese or whatever. I just get 15% of that. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. I don't know, like Matt's saying, like, I don't know if it's going to work out 100%. There's so much, like with internet. Let's just go back to the internet, right? It started off very utopian, and everybody's like, well, we're all going to come together, and we'll all just
quite the opposite has happened, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, money flowed in, and power flowed in, and it's become a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And so blockchain's going through that exact same cycle, where right now it's very utopian. There's a lot of really cool stuff in it. And eventually money's going to flow in and power's going to flow in, and people are going to try and come up with some other thing to outdo blockchain. And that's just like, it's for better or worse or whatever. It's the cycle of things for right now.
Somebody's school bus just pulled up.
Yeah, sorry, that's my neighborhood. Oh. It's the new word, like, yeah. Let me close that window. Hold on.
We're gonna have to do a podcast on that. The art of car horns. No, but that's really interesting. So what exactly does NFT stand for? Because you got someone like me who's a complete dummy about it. I have no idea what it actually stands for.
I can give you the definition of the initials, but I don't know the exact words. But
transaction.
Non-fungible token.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, non-fungible tokens.
Now, see, I like that kickback thing that you're talking about, but then a part of me is like, I realize what Joker was talking about, and part of me wonders, if someone's gonna find a way to hack into the code, because I come from the 90s school of computers where everything is hackable, no matter, like, as long as you have Sandra Bullock and a computer with a green text on it, you can hack into the code and figure it out.
Or like
and then,
Matthew Lillard and Angelina Jolie in spinning phone booths.
Yeah. Or on the flip side of it, kind of also on what Joker was talking about, if I'm selling the NFT to Diego for a certain amount of money, and I know you're getting 15% of that money, am I not going to artificially inflate the price of it a little bit more just because I want certain amount of money, so I'm going to push it up more because I know you're going to get a slice of that, so then it's going to push up it just a little bit, and after a while that excrement is just going to start to snowball. I know.
Excrementally. Oh.
I can't speak today. But after a while, that's going to snowball, right? And it's going to just avalanche into like crazy out of control prices. And because that's the way it goes. Like when I'm on eBay, when I'm looking at something, somebody bought something and now they're flipping it. Like right now, I like there's some, posters that people have designed, illustration oddly enough, that are officially licensed for like the Universal monsters, and they're sold by Mondo, and there's a limited amount, and then like there's like 100 of them, and within the second, if it goes on sale at 10 a.m. by 10:01, all gone. But if I go on eBay, there's about 50 of them up there for like 275% increase plus $33 shipping, and you know what I mean? Like, and it's just these assholes who go in there and they I don't want to say steal art, but it basically is, because shouldn't art be something? It's entertainment. It should be something that people get to do and enjoy. And if you're flipping it, it's like, okay, like if I had to sell some of the things that I collect right now, I would sell them because I had a reason to let them go. Not usually because I'm tired of it, but mostly because like, oh, my kid just turned 16 and I need to get some money for a car, or I just lost my job and I'm trying to pay the bills or whatever. So like that's why I would sell it, and I would probably try and sell it for like a fair amount, a little, at least at minimum what I paid for it. Like that's where I would set the floor. But then when you have things like this where it's just something that's in demand, I don't know if we can control it where assholes aren't going to come in and blow up the price.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Diego.
No, I was just gonna say very quickly, like the whole idea of like this value addition to each work that's being resold, you know, flipping it. It pretty much is like that same idea of being an auction in the end, you know. It helps a lot, you know. The price rises, the profit, and I guess you could call it royalty with the 15% rises as well, you know. So that pretty much is the process of what would happen in the future. But it all, as Matt Joker Rumi,
you can call me Matt. You can call me whatever you want, honey.
As he mentioned, as Rumi mentioned, like this is all about risks, you know, and so it will vary in the future. It's uncertain. So, I mean, right now it is the best time to take advantage of it, so you can, you know, take advantage of the money in a way.
Yeah. Well, and like my main concern though, like the kickback thing Rainwater mentioned, that's probably my favorite thing about it, because like it's kind of the best thing about it, if it works. But then like I think about like when I tried to get into stocks. My ass has no business in stocks. I'm not smart that way. And like, there's all these people who are like money wizards, right? And I have such awe and like respect for them because they're just so intuitively into it. Like, they can just manipulate numbers and money and stocks and just make richness happen. And like, I don't have that ability. And like, I feel like this Bitcoin cryptocurrency tech, the net Sandra Bullock system that we have burgeoning out, like, I feel like that requires a certain level of panache and know-how to get into it. And it's not that I'm averse to learning, it's that I'm tired and I'm also short on time. I'm 36. Also, I'm not, you know, a young chicken.
It's also like, I mean, speaking as somebody who has a little bit of money in cryptocurrency and is just sort of doing it.
Dogecoin to the moon.
Partially for the lols, but also because I'm interested to participate in this experiment. It's fucking complicated. It's like, it's as complicated as the stock market. It's as complicated as the rest of the financial markets of the world. As complicated as the art market, because so much of it right now is just, well, I say right now, for its entire existence, is speculative. Because what Bitcoin is basically they're trying to validate digital currency. Like we technically right now we already exist in a digital currency world.
Yeah.
Like all of our paper money dollars are kind of just there for fun, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of
the
a
gold
weird
standard was fuck leaking a long time ago.
It's kind of just it's the weird art project we've all been in for however many decades, to be like, oh yeah, these dollars are worth things. You can get a gold bar or whatever at Fort Knox. It's like, no, not really. Like
maybe if I work at the factory another 80 hours in like 2 days, you know.
So
I can maybe buy half of a house.
I have a question. Does it cost money to register the work of art as an NFT? Is there a cost associated to it?
A lot of money, actually.
It costs quite a bit.
Yeah, it's about $50 to $80, and it's not a guaranteed amount. You don't know how much you're going to pay before you mint.
That's
Quite frankly.
Yeah, that's the thing that's risky about cryptocurrency. I mean, like, you got to spend a little to gain, and that's why I haven't like jumped into it, like, because I was still learning more about this, because like there's so many risks. Like you mentioned, it's like stocks; it goes up and down. You don't know the value of the cryptocurrency, because like there's like, I thought it was just one cryptocurrency, and apparently there's like 3 or
there's
more.
There's several.
There's almost 1,000 now. Yeah, it's a lot.
Bitcoin is the big one, because and like now I'm even seeing billboards here in Connecticut where like local businesses are now accepting Bitcoin as currency, which is kind of crazy. The only reason I know about Dogecoin was because people were tweeting about it, and then I was like, what the fuck is this? And Rainwater was like, it's fun. So I literally went on my portfolio, and I was like, fuck it, here's $50, and I threw it in there, which turned into like $300 for me. So thank you, Mr. Rainwater.
That is why I am a Dogecoin maximalist, because it's the only one that makes the most sense to me, because it's just for the fun of it. Or everything else.
We gotta talk later, buddy. You gotta get me up on all of this stuff.
Yeah, man.
See, and that's the thing is like, and we're talking about the value of art. I guess that's where really what this topic, this podcast is coming down to. So branching out from NFTs and stuff, I'm curious to know from you guys, how you guys value art. Like when you look at something, like say you guys went to a gallery, or you were hosting your own gallery, if you ever got that wonderful opportunity, how would you go about valuing something? Because we've talked about this a little bit in some of the past episodes, but I'm curious to know your guys's, no pun intended, 2 cents about like what you attach. Like you could take 10 hours and make something and be like, yeah, I'm not really liking this. I'm just going to sell it for $1 and see what happens. And then you could also, do something in 30 seconds to be like, that's fucking awesome. I dreamt that last night and I just made it $1,000. Like what do you think is like the fair way about going towards valuing art? Because, as Joker said, there's a lot of rich people who just, come in and they use it as like an incognito way to barter or whatever they're doing. But then at the same time, as artists, don't we get to some kind of say in what our art should be sold for? Because when you guys were talking about the resale of an NFT, part of me was like, I hate the fact that assholes can come in like how they do when I'm trying to buy tickets on Ticketmaster to a concert and scalp me and resell it for, $100 more or whatever like that. Wouldn't it be cool if like the NFT let the artist set the price of the resale? Like, wouldn't that be the fixer of it, where it's just like, hey, Mr. Artist, I'm going to sell that thing that I bought from you. Can you please set a current value on it? And then the artist decides what it's currently worth. Like, shouldn't that be the way we go about it?
What's funny, Joe, is I want to jump in right here, because I was going to say this back when we were talking about NFTs. What I love about you is that your love of Batman is so core to your personality. You're all about what should be. What should be. Shouldn't that be?
Yeah.
It should be. That should be really advantageous for people. And this is where I am the Joker. I know it's never going to be that. Ever. And I respect you for your views, and I want your world to exist. I want your world where it should be.
But you live in reality where it's not going to happen.
No, I don't. And I will correct you. I am not that noble, and I'm not trying to appear as such. I live in the other side of reality. Like, reality is between the two of us. I'm in the world where nothing works. Everything is depressing, and there's no possibility for anything good to happen. My therapist was working with me on that.
I'm not laughing at you. This is just...
No, it's fine. Like, so Yeah, so like I ran out of money for therapy, and then that did, only really boosted my argument. You know, so like it's just I'm gonna abstract this out, but I'm gonna try to keep it down to like a limited amount of time. I feel like the energy you put out is what you get back, and I've only recently really come to learn that. And so I'm trying to put out at least neutral, if not positive energy, because like when you're expecting shit to go to hell, it probably is going to, and you're going to make the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I'm kind of working on that. But to go back to how you value art, Joe, your question, and I guess I'll just take the question first so we can get back on the rails. So how I value it personally is something vastly different to how I value it at like a show where I'm selling my illustrations and wares and things. So I don't know which one you're more interested in.
A combo of them, because aren't they kind of related to each other? Like when I write a script, sometimes I'll write it and I'll be like, you know what? I'm just going to write a bullshit love story that I know Hallmark might be interested in, so I can sell this and make a quick-ass buck to a cheesy Christmas like, in July marathon versus... I had this dream. This is a movie I really want to see happen. I want to be in control of it. I love it. This is a story that speaks to me. And like we've talked about in the past, I walked away from a big deal because they were fucking me, and it wasn't about the money to me. Like that like I'm curious to know the correlation for you.
So, side note, didn't you and Rainwater write a script called Blood Monkey for the Sci-Fi Channel at one point?
False. We mused. It was late night over some Papa John's pizza, and we were watching the Sci-Fi Channel, and we just were riffing. It was called Guerrilla Warfare, and it was about gorillas that were trained.
Gorilla Moon. That's what it was. Yeah. I remember that shit. Anyway, so zipping that up. So I just thought that was funny. So in terms of keep it moving, guys. So like in terms of valuing art for myself, for me it's a form of therapy, it's a form of interacting with other people socially and finding social touch points to enrich my social life and like kind of my spirit, Yeah. But in America, especially, that doesn't fucking fly. Like, nobody cares about your spirit. How much is it worth? Or how much can I take it for? So, like, when I would do art shows, and a lot of my, like, Detroit art buddies that I used to do shows with can vouch for this, I would have my stuff laid out and display and everything, and I'd get so many people coming up saying how rad my shit was. And I'm like, oh, thanks. That's awesome. And then they'd take out their cell phone, and then they would snap a picture of it and leave.
That's some bullshit.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what price tag I have on it. They are not going to buy it. And then they're not going to buy it even more now that I'm watching TV or YouTube and I see this douche in a fucking vest being like, we designed a platform where anyone can design graphic design. Anyone can design a whole marketing campaign. We don't need artists anymore. Fuck them. This is cheap.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it fucking looks cheap, man. I don't know. That's my rant.
That's you and me have talked about it a couple of times, Matt, and it's something that I think about pretty frequently is figuring out art is such a thing that it's very easy to make the value of it ambiguous. Because it's like if somebody makes you a hamburger, you have an intrinsic idea of how much that hamburger's worth, at least to you. Like that's at least 2 to 3, 4, 5. You know, you can keep going up however good that fucking hamburger was for you, right?
Yeah.
Is a painting, it has very ambiguous value because it's emotional, because it's sentimental, because it's based on your feelings about it could change from day to day. I have paintings I've made where it's like some days I like it, and other days I'm like, oh, that's fucking piece of shit. Why did I even bother?
I've been that way with writing. I've written things and I'm like, this is fucking amazing. Come back 2 weeks later and I'm like, what the fuck was I on when I was writing this? Yeah.
And it's the exact same thing with the consumer of that art. So, like, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of people who spent millions of dollars in NFTs in a couple of months. They're going to be like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, Ethereum's now at 10,000, and I spent how much to buy this stupid, like, block monster eating Hillary Clinton's head or whatever the fuck. But anyway, I guess my point is going back to in a perfect world, there'd be some, gathering, some society of artists who would all come together and decide on how these things are valued. And then there would probably be a war afterwards, but point being...
The art wars.
Yeah, the art wars.
Honestly, that would be a great fucking war because the creativity in battle would be so fucking rad.
Fuck, yeah.
Diego, did you have anything? You've been a little quiet on the Costa Rica side for a couple minutes.
Well, I was just like, when you were mentioning about the whole idea, like, putting value on your art.
Yeah.
I just remember like this one guy here in Costa Rica who's almost become a massive meme, like a living meme. He's mainly known in the music scene as the guy who sells his own art outside the concert venue. And what he does is like he grabs like a little piece of paper and he does like some janky, stupid looking, sketches, and he aggressively approaches you. Like he's famous about this. He knows that his art is crap, and and he's like, yo, do you support local art? And he's like aggressively on top of you, like, hey, yo, buy this, man, buy this. I'll punch your ass or something like that. Kind
of like the people in New York City who come up to you with their rap demo, or they just pester you if you like comedy. Of course, I like fucking comedy. I don't like your comedy. Fuck off. Like,
but like the funny thing is, like this guy like sells like this like wrinkled piece of paper with his sketches to like some people like for 1,000 colones, which is roughly like $2, and. And nowadays, like if you actually think about it, and he's actually has become very famous here in Costa Rica because he's the weird, odd, I guess, homeless guy who's selling his own art to support local art, right? And he actually has become famous with other musicians who's come down to Costa Rica. Like he actually has sold art to Metallica, for example.
Jeez.
Like he actually took pictures with like. Yeah, like he actually took pictures of James Hetfield right there with his like weird Evil Ed picture from Iron Maiden for some reason. Just like right there. So he actually is beginning to have like his own value to a certain point. So if for some reason James Hetfield decides to sell this, like, oh, this is from this Costa Rican artist that I kind of liked his personality, I just bought it from him, and yeah, he's able to sell it. I don't know. It just reminded me of that for some reason.
It's really interesting though, because like you bring up a point about like it's almost like fashion, where it's like almost like Joker said before. Like one person looks at it and says, "Oh, that's worth $100 million," and then all of a sudden it's worth $100 million, whereas 10 minutes ago it was worth $8 that the canvas was purchased for. You know what I mean? Like it's really interesting to see how. It's kind of like I look at some things and I'm just like, why does everyone like this? And it's like it's some kind of movie or something like that, and I'm like, I don't get it. And part of me is wondering if it's just people riding a hype train of this is what's current, this is what's hot and new, and if you don't like it, you're not cool. And it's almost like there's no real value attached to it other than how much you can hype what it is you're doing. But like then I look at something that like Rainwater, like Trailer Park Warlock. He's got like all these followers who fucking gush over his work. That's value, man. Like that's support. And he doesn't have like some agency behind it going, hey, this is the brand new comic from Matthew J. Rainwater. Like,
well,
no,
sort
it's
of
people who
I
found
kind of
it.
have a webtoon.
Yeah.
Webtoon functions a little bit as that agency. They do promote it from time to time, so it's
But
not.
did they? I'm curious to know. Did they promote it before it had all of those followers, or did they only hop on the bandwagon after you kind of took off?
This is a very interesting question.
I don't want to put them on blast if that's going to get you in trouble.
No, it's one I'm still trying to understand and figure out properly. It's one of those questions of did they adopt to promote me because they felt that I would take off, or was it that them promoting me was what caused it to take off? Which
the chicken or the warlock.
Yeah.
So in other words, Mr. Rainwater, are you struggling? Are you telling me you're struggling with imposter syndrome at the moment?
Oh, of course, every day. But
yeah, all of us every day.
Every day. Well, I would say here's my thing. I would say that I don't undercut how much value marketing and promotion adds.
Oh yeah.
You know
Distribution
what I mean?
platforms are like the biggest key. You could have like it's almost like a movie that grosses nothing on the box office run, but then everyone finds it on home video, and it's like, this is the greatest fucking movie ever. Like you look at Shawshank, and it was a fucking disaster in the theaters, but then now it's like the number 1 or 2 movie on IMDb of all time, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like the cream rises, I guess.
It's one of those things where it's something that I'm trying to find the pattern in, because I am often mystified by how things take off, like randomly.
Like our food podcast?
Yeah.
Or think about it this way also. I mean, like, there's Shawshank Redemption. It was it didn't critically, it bombed in the beginning, and then it became great later, like you mentioned, right? Let's take it to the other side and bring up The Room.
Yeah.
My favorite example.
Okay.
Like it's a cult classic for the wrong reasons, right? To the point that that James Franco made his own movie based on the book that's about what happened during the whole production, and you actually start to see that little by little the Room has become more famous internationally, because like the first time I actually heard about The Room was near the end of college, and then when I came back here in Costa Rica, like everyone started talking about The Room. I like, how the fuck does that happen, man? And
I see, but
I don't know, like
Joker can back me up on this, because Joker has dabbled in filmmaking, but anybody who's ever been on a film set or several film sets has inevitably run into this scenario where you're like, what the fuck are we doing? How did this guy get to be the director? Who wrote this shit? Like, there are so many movies that are like that, that are just absolutely unwatchable pieces of garbage, but for some reason, The Room elevated. Like, that's the reason. Like, I don't understand why The Room is the one that everybody is like looking at and like, oh, this is so terrible, but it's great because it's terrible. But there's so many movies that are like that. Like, you can watch MST3K and it's like, okay, here's more. Like,
what's funny about that, I'm glad we're kind of touching on this, because like, as you guys probably all know, that type of cult movie that's like just kind of wonky and just kind of out there, like that's like my favorite kind of movie, because like, even like some people are like, oh, it's ironic, it's so bad, let's let's all laugh at it. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I've been there too. But if you really look harder and honestly at those movies, it's people putting out a very strong, unmarketable idea because they really wanted it and they really tried hard. Mm-hmm. And like, you kind of get like a purity in that, like yes. there's true art there, and like, as for, looping it back to valuing art, like I've always told Aaron around the house, like, when I finally get this big magnum opus comic done or get a few comics done and actually live up to the name I keep touting myself with, like, I would not want to be very like a famous, successful comic maker. What I want to be is I want to be the cult filmmaker who has like 100 diehard fans, or like 200 diehard fans, not like millions, but like people who just love my shit so much and want to talk about it and engage with me and like kind of become like the tribe, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, this thing keeps falling out. So that's my 2 cents on that. And like, the weird movies. And also, Diego, I wanted to say the art guy outside the venue reminds me of when I came for your wedding. There was like, you get out of the airport and like you were picking us up, and for whatever reason, I figure this will be good because Rainwater and Joe don't know this story.
I'm already hooked. I'm waiting to see what happens.
So for whatever reason, like Diego was going to pick us up, but like it was like a Tico time scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I didn't. It was my fault. I didn't build in for Tico time at all. So
Well,
like
explain
that's
to
on me.
what's Tico time. I'm
Diego, you want to take this one?
Yeah, Tico time. Like it's defined differently in other countries, but Tico time in particular is you say I'm gonna arrive at 1 p.m. right?
sure.
The certain place. You know, fine, all good. You know, and there's a party that is gonna happen around that time, so I'm gonna be there at 1 p.m. The party starts at 2, right? All right, I get there like 3 hours later.
Yeah.
That explains so much about you, Diego. But okay.
Yeah, because it's like it's Pura Vida, right? Like
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
pure life.
exactly.
That's the whole thing. And like, so anyway, to wrap up, I'm getting out of the airport. We're looking for Diego. We've just landed in a country I've never been to, and we're like by ourselves with all the possessions we're gonna need for the next 2 weeks. And as soon as we get out of the empty airport, there's just a glut like of 50 cab drivers. And like this is not like New York. Like these are like they're all different colored cabs with different logos. They're all different types of car. They're all like, come on, man, you need a ride? You need a ride? I'm gonna give you a ride. Here, get in my car, give you a ride. Here, give me your stuff, And like, here's the thing. It was a high pressure scenario, but I will always say everyone in Costa Rica is like hard on their hustle, but they're going to treat you reasonably well. I was never treated poorly in Costa Rica once. Matter of fact, one of the pirate cabbies who was trying to get me to take a ride from him let me use his cell phone to call Diego.
Awesome.
Like, that's how nice it is. He's like trying to pressure me into like taking this ride and giving him money. He's like, oh, your friend is coming? Here, you could use my phone and call him. And I'm like, cool. Like, that's awesome, man. Like, just like, I don't know. I had a really positive experience in Costa Rica. I recommend it.
See, now I had a like that on my honeymoon with my wife. We went to Dominican Republic. Not similar scenario, not exactly the same vibe though, where the cab people were just like, oh, you need a ride? Come with me. And they just like pick up my bags before I even said yes. And I'm just like, hey, no, we have a one scheduled. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm the one that's scheduled. I'm like, that's not matching the paper. Like, it's like one of those things where it was one of those scenarios where I was also in a country I had never been before, nor will I ever go back. And just
had a bad time there.
No, but you know something, a week in a resort, the food, you start realizing no matter what particular restaurant you are at, it's all the same kitchen. That's just, it's kind of like the mall where like there's Asian people and they're cooking Texas barbecue right next to another Asian, like it's Asian food. And it's like, no, this is not barbecue sauce. This is the honey glaze that you have on the teriyaki next door. It's the same thing. But anyway, we're getting a little towards our end. So, Mr. Diego, this is your first episode. So I'm just curious if there's, we were talking about this. I wanted to touch on this because I saw on your Instagram. What's your handle? Just so our listeners can look you up.
Yeah, my Instagram handle is YoAmDiego, which is YoAmDiego.
Diego. So you
Yeah.
are doing something very similar to our good friend Mr. Joe Bevs.
Yeah.
Where Joe Bevel is doing one drawing every single day. Or at least like a progress post every single day on his thing. Sometimes he'll just post a picture of his eraser. And it's just like, this is where I am today. And it's just meant to be interpreted. But he's working on something different every single day and trying to keep himself accountable. And everything...
Joe Beth is killing it, by the way.
Yeah,
he is absolutely killing it. He's really rocking the game. And like, let me just pimp him real quick. His record drops tomorrow.
Uh-oh.
Wait, say that again?
His record.
Joe Bevel. His
Fuck
record
yeah.
drops tomorrow.
I'm
Uh-oh.
excited
You
about
should
it.
hit up his socials, Mr. Bevel, or what is it, Mr. Bevel 100 Days.
So, yeah,
What is his
I
other
think he
one?
has 2 of them at least.
What are they called? Like Bev 2 or something?
Yeah.
Well, for his record, I would promote soundcloud.com/Joe Bevel.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for the honor. I
And-
didn't have it in front of me.
For what it's worth, we're recording this podcast ahead of time, so by the time you're listening to it, it's probably already out. So
Exactly.
100% go check that out if you need some awesome music. But Mr. Diego is doing something similar and yet different, where, and correct me if I'm mistaken about any of this, you are drawing the exact same thing every single day and posting it and tracking how it becomes different as your skills progress, how ideas maybe change in your mind about how you're approaching it. Are I'm curious to know, since we're talking about illustration using different mediums, are you going to do the same thing with different mediums? Like one day do it in graphite pencil, one day do it in charcoal, one day do it in paint, one day, I'm just curious to know what's this whole process that you're doing? Why are you doing it? And what do you hope to get out of it?
Yeah, pretty much you got the right idea there. Pretty much, I got this idea from a YouTuber. I forgot his name. I'll probably look up the video later. But pretty much the idea was that since I've been kind of stuck doing a bunch of things and going nowhere with my art,
brother.
I think everybody's there, but yeah.
Pretty much the summary of the video was that this artist was talking to his like mentor, and he said, okay, so I'm doing a bunch of things, I'm not doing anything. So the guy pretty much said, your mind is scattered, it's like putting a brick to build a bunch of houses, but you're putting one brick in each house. So you have something starting and it's not really completing. So you got to start in one place. So what pretty much the idea is, he said, draw one thing, the same thing every day. So that keeps you focused, right? So that's the main idea, especially since I have ADD,
Yeah, me too.
So like, I like, oh dude, that's like, why didn't I think about it that way? I mean, so I especially since I already know that I do better one thing at a time. So I started doing this exercise, especially since I got this new iPad last month, and I started using Procreate. I started using it as a way to exercise my brain and the tool, so I can kind of experiment on it. So I just happened to choose, Cthulhu, as my main subject. Thanks to Matt, by the way. He introduced me to H.P. Lovecraft, and I'm loving it, So I started drawing Cthulhu, so I was trying to check out, Procreate. And the thing I like about Procreate is that it does a replay of what you've been doing throughout the whole time. So yep. I did that. I'm drawing and doing everything. So yeah, pretty much the advantage as an illustrator is that I can imitate. I can use any style, any medium. In this case, I'm concentrating on Procreate, and since Procreate is like the iPad equivalent of Photoshop, I'm experimenting with the tools. So yeah, every day I'm drawing Cthulhu. The next day I'm drawing Cthulhu slightly differently, or using a different brush to give it more texture, using more color, different colors and everything. And now the fact that you mentioned that I should use, charcoal, and that's actually something I didn't think about. So I might actually bring it up and kind of put it in there with some sort of time lapse to kind of use it. So yeah, this exercise is more of an exercise for me, so I can kind of get back into the game. And again, going back with the whole digital art, I'm trying to improve a new thing after like almost like since 2008 that I came out of. I'm a bit of a late bloomer in that sense with the digital art, but this is something that will, improve. It's an exercise I would recommend to anyone who wants to improve their craft. So doing the same thing every day and changing it up a little bit will give awesome results. And so far, I'm just 2 days in. So hopefully, if you're like checking out my Instagram, you're going to be checking this Cthulhu evolve into something cute, to something nasty, something odd, abstract, whatever,
That's awesome.
What would be really cool too is like when you get done, whenever that is, See if you can do like a thing where you like do each one of them as a frame, so you get to see the progression like it's an animation. That would be cool to try to figure.
That is cool. Yeah, that's a
I
cool
am.
idea. I
I'm
like that
curious
one.
though, Diego. How do you end that? Going back to episode 2, me and Rainwater talking about ending a project. Where do you draw the line about how you end that particular exercise?
Well, the funny thing is that this is mainly an exercise that can learn the tool, so I can continue something that's unfinished. You know, because actually, on my free time, I started a small business with my wife called Soali Art, which is
Shout out to Doña Carla.
My beautiful and creative, wonderful wife. We came up with this small project, which is printing out shirts and cups and mugs and all that stuff. We're using sublimation, which is, I don't know if that's translated, but yeah, sublimation.
Yeah, that's what we call it here too.
Okay, excellent.
I don't know what that means. Can you explain what that is?
Okay, so sublimation is a type of printing that requires you to use some heat and some special inks.
Okay.
And pretty much I just need a ink tank printer, you know.
Okay.
And but the ink itself is very particular because it reacts to heat, so it can kind of get stuck there. And in this case, sublimation ink cannot use white unless you buy a special ink for it. So anything that's white will be pretty much transparent. And when I'm doing T-shirts, like this one, for example, this one I stole the art from Beast Record.
After all that.
After all the talk about.
So yeah, I kind of experimented on myself, but yeah, like I get this image, I print it on the special. Well, not special. You need polyester to kind of print out the thing. So the T-shirt has to be at least 60% polyester, right? And pretty much I grab the image, flip it. It needs to be printed, flipped, and then I kind of get a giant ironing thing and press it on there.
Okay.
And it kind of gets stuck. And what I like about it is, like, it has very rich colors. The problem is that it's limited to white being transparent, so I can't really use it on colors, colored shirts, because the tint will kind of go there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that the whole tangent that I just said right now was basically because I have a couple of arts T-shirts that I owe a friend of mine from work, and he's been waiting since November, right? So I'm using I've been using this exercise to kind of master it, so I can kind of make it more effective, so I can have it on the go and then just kind of print out the image and use it for all sort of stuff. So that's when I'll end my exercise is when I feel more confident that I'm more familiar with the tool itself. So yeah, that's pretty much when I'm ending it.
That's great that you have that deadline in, because I think a lot of artists go into a project without knowing when they're gonna draw the line. Like me, we've talked about this before. I need to set like a release date, and I need to publicly announce it before I even wrote the script, just because I know that I'll become embarrassingly accountable if I don't hit that deadline. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I've told people about this project and now they're expecting it and they're excited for it, and if I don't hit that thing, then I just look like an asshole who's talking and never doing anything. And that's how I motivate myself, as to become a self-starter. It's either that or I'm absolutely in love with a project and I just want to see it. More times than not, those are the projects that work out better for me. But the point is whatever way I can find a deadline is what, or something to motivate me to hit a deadline where I stop. That's where the art actually comes out. Like, I stopped giving a shit about film festivals and art contests after I won a shit ton of them and nothing fucking happened. and I realized it was all bullshit. So that used to be the thing that I would chase after. It would be like, oh, I got to hit this deadline because otherwise I won't get into the festival. Now I'm just like, well, what the fuck? But anyway, I digress. I'm going into a billion different topics. We should probably wrap up on this wonderful recording night because I know you gentlemen want to get on with your weekend. But I want to thank you, Mr. Diego, for coming on. And as always, Mr. Joker,
Thanks,
Matt
Diego.
Walters, thank you. Fun Button Press on Instagram for Mr. Joker. We're going to have you guys back on. I don't know if I've publicly announced this yet. I know me and Rainwater have discussed it, but I want to have almost like a SCAD collective of like almost everyone we fucking know on one particular giant episode. And here's the real kicker though, and this is maybe will be a kick in the ass for all of us, myself included, but kind of hold it like a critique session where we all present a particular work, whether it be an illustration, a photograph, whatever, and we all can kind of chime in and maybe do like an old school art critique.
Bringing back my biggest insecurity from daily classes.
But hey, you know something
awesome.
though?
That sounds like fun, man.
But here's the best part about it, and this is something that we didn't get into tonight. It was kind of our fallback topic, which we could probably have both you gentlemen come on and guest star again on for this particular topic. But the merits of art education. To be honest, since graduating college, and this may just be true for me, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I feel like my understanding, appreciation, and my approach to things like critique or just art in general have grown exponentially from seeds that I got from school, and now I've got a better grasp on them and understanding. So like when I go to a critique, I'm not going in there with an intention to humiliate someone, to make myself look better. Like all that ego shit is fallen off of me. And I've understood, like me and Rainwater talked about the art of critique. I'm coming at it now from a different perspective of not what would I do. It's more like trying to understand what the artist was trying to do and explaining how that's not working for me. And you know what I mean? Like coming at it from trying to assist and aid them as opposed to hijack their art or give myself get the extra credit from the professor or some bullshit like that. So I feel like that anxiety, yes, we're all going to have that little tick in the back of our head like, oh, fuck, I hope they like it. But at the same time, I feel like we're all going to be growth in friends, and it's going to be like a really cathartic, awesome experience that we should have gotten in art college. Like we should have got there, but all things come with time. And I feel like that's...
I would say, Matt? I did get there on a few critiques. There were great critiques at SCAD. I will say that. It's just, like everything, there was good and bad,
Yeah,
right.
But when we have that episode, we should call it the honey pot, because the SCAD bees.
I see what you did there.
Look at that.
Honey pot at the spaghetti factory, making people real confused.
Honey flavored spaghetti. Now that's one I need to try to make.
Oh man.
I've been loving the food, Joe, by the way.
Thank you. That I made Diego drool right before we got on the air.
Fuck you, man. I was starving, and then I saw your Instagram, like dead steak, man. Oh. I have to make myself, and I made myself a ham and cheese sandwich. So yeah.
Well, oddly enough, that was our craziest, highest rated podcast. We go from like 12 to like, I think the other highest one was like maybe 16 or 18 like listeners, particular things that I've seen. And then all of a sudden we dropped the food podcast, and even Rainwater will attest to this. I forgot to post it. Yeah. Like I had scheduled it to post, and I had forgotten to like hit like confirm or whatever like that. And it was like a week later, and he was like, hey, are you ever going to get around to posting that episode? And I was like, shit. So I went in, and it was already uploaded, and I was like, all right, post. Next thing you know, we turn around, and it's got like hundreds of views and like downloads and listens and stuff. I don't know what the hell happened, but I guess some millionaire pointed at it and said, that's the podcast that will take off for them. And it went.
Call back.
But we are going to do some more food podcasts for those of you who are listening. We are going to do this awesome critique session that I have in mind. Joker brought up a very interesting topic that I think if you're willing to and you're interested in, You don't have to confirm on air. We can talk about it off the air. But at some point, we are going to talk about art and depression, because that is definitely one that I think all of us struggle with, whether you're an artist or not. But artists more than most, maybe. I know that it has gotten me through a lot of my depression at times. Sometimes it has triggered me into depression. But it's definitely something that's in the works, and it's probably going to be a podcast where we're going to implore you to please listen to it on a sunshine day while you've maybe just won the lottery or something, so that way you don't go
jerked off or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do have some things in the works, and I definitely hope to have you guys back on. For our listeners, make sure you tune in next week for a very special 420 episode, where Zhao is going to be looking a fool, but we're going to have a guest on, and we're going to talk about art and
You're
substances.
gonna be talking to the Rainwaters.
Was your sister going to be on?
Yeah. That's the plan.
Yeah. Rainwater times 2.
I don't know how I'm going to handle that, but it's definitely going to be an interesting episode for sure.
I was about to be like, Joe, you're going to smoke weed?
No. That's the kind of kicker is I'm going to be asking stupid ass questions because I've never done a single substance in my entire life, alcohol included.
That's true.
However, for those of you who care, not very many of you, but some of you who care, I am at 99% tested by my primary doctor that I am clear of my alcohol allergy. And in July, or I think it's either June 18th June 18th, I am scheduled for my allergist test where they will give me the final 1% confirmation that I can booze after 35 years of sobriety. I went through my entire life. I went through 18, 21, college, marriage, and having a kid without ever having alcohol, but it looks like this might be the year. So, maybe is there a national?
Right.
Honest to God, if we do it, I might just have my first beer. We'll just do like the art of beer, and you guys can get me drunk and just tell me ahead of time what I gotta buy, and I'll drink on the podcast, and we just watch me get drunk. Because I'm not going to be able to hold my liquor. It's pretty obvious.
I'll drink with you to that. Yeah, that sounds fun.
But yeah, we've got a lot of great episodes coming up, guys. So make sure you stay tuned to that Spaghetti Factory. Thank you for listening. Diego, Joker, thank you for coming on. Rainwater, as usual, thank you, brother, for always having my back. And we will see you guys next week.